So within the scene, we can basically pick apart any one of these props and get it down to a very basic primitive shape. So to take a look at these, we have like the candle, that could be like a cylinder. The ring is obviously a cylinder, the book. So we're going to take a look at all the objects and kind of break down all the primitives that we're starting from. So when I say primitives, we basically mean in the mesh tab up here, we have like cube, cylinder, circle, cylinder, all these basic shapes here. And if we check these out, we have this first one over here, which is going to be our ring. This one's going to be a pretty obvious one. We're just starting with a cylinder and kind of box modeling it into something like this. Next up, we have our scroll. So this scroll paper right here, we're starting with a 2D edge. So this is going to be spline and curve modeling right here. And it's essentially, it's basically just a two-dimensional shape that we then turn into a 3D object. And then over here we have our jar. So we're going to take something like this, just a two-dimensional shape, and then turn it into this three-dimensional object. So this is, again, spline and curve modeling. Next up, we have our first real box modeling example. And you can see here all the different shapes here. So we have one cube, one cylinder, and then another cylinder. And essentially what we do is we polygon model these two things together, and we essentially fill in the gaps between these two right there. Next up, we have our first sculpting example. So we're just starting with a very basic cylindrical shape, and we're going to do some topology on this to kind of get it working with sculpting, and then turn it into this really organic shape using some sculpting techniques. And then for the flame, what we're going to do that all inside of texturing and shading. Then we have our globe over here. So our magic globe, this is going to be three different objects. So we have our sphere, a cylinder, and this cylinder down here. So this is actually a three-sided cylinder that we're going to then turn into this through some polygon modeling techniques. And then from there, all this magical interior stuff, all this smoky stuff coming off there, we're going to do all of that through texturing. And we have our book over here. So this one's going to be pretty obvious. We're just starting with a cube. And then within that cube, we're going to polygon model this into these couple different shapes, which is going to be the cover, the paper, and then the strap right there. And then the last one here, we have our window. And then this window probably looks a little bit more complicated than what it actually is. It's pretty simple. All we're going to do is we're going to take a grid and we're going to turn this into a wireframe. So essentially all of these are going to be edges. So essentially we have just a grid like this. We're going to do the wireframe modifier, and then we're going to boolean these two shapes together just like that. And then from there we have things like the spider webs. Those are all going to be through texturing as well. And that's that. And then in the next chapter, what we're going to do is we're going to start getting hands-on.